There, Sleeping Warrior. I have no doubt that many of you, if not all of you, were as moved by that film as I was. Um, I had the luxury of seeing the film prior to this, so this would be the second time. And I stopped the film to call in my daughter to see a moment, and even though she was busy with exams, studying for them, because I found that such a powerful film. And so to have uh, the director, one of the directors, Janet Wells, with us, who is in London, England right now. Is it London you're in, Janet?
Correct. Yeah, London, Putney.
Putney. And also with us is Peter Raymont, who is the executive producer, I believe, on this project. And key, despite what he might say otherwise, to getting this project off the ground. So welcome, Peter. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you
Nice
very
to
much.
be with you.
I'm going to throw my first question at Janet, and that is the title. And what is wonderful about films with titles like this is that it's kind of a built-in mystery. We don't really fully understand the importance of that title until we get through the film. At what point in your narrative did you realize that this was the title for the story you were telling?
Well, it's really an interesting question. Actually, we filmed where the girls are in the camp. That's actually under the shadow of Sleeping Warrior Mountain, and we used to like look over at it a lot. And when we filmed them on the water, you could see it in the background, and we just and part of us just thought these girls are just so strong, and they have been held down so much by their circumstances. And I mean, we really focused just on one girl, Sharon, and a little bit on Maureen, but so many of the girls had just been like sleeping, and their potential hasn't been realized. So it just kind of, one day we were having breakfast looking at the mountain and said, gosh, maybe that would be a nice title. So then Nina, my producing partner, went over and met I think it's Maori. Sorry, not Maori. God, not Maori. Oh God, it'll come to me. Anyway, the tribe nearby, and one of the elders, and got the story of Sleeping Warrior, and it talks about how a warrior never dies, but just lies asleep, and one day will rise again. So. Yeah, so we just thought it would be in reflection of where they train, in reflection of who they are, and also to have the African or the Kenyan the callback.
Yeah, it is beautiful, and yes, obviously we see the mountain, and we know the name of the mountain, but we recognize that there's got to be something deeper, and you so beautifully weave that in to the narrative. Um, you said that the story mainly focuses on Sharon, and then later goes into Maureen. How did you? I mean, you must have you couldn't have gone in there. Well, maybe you did. So let me just back up and just say, how did you recognize that these were the two stories to go with? Did you get the other stories from the other women? Um,
Yeah, I mean that's a huge problem because we really focused on four young women, and uh, it was I thought we were going to have a short film when we went in originally. I thought we were going to have a really cute little short film these girls and just go off to Canada. But the layers and layers, and one of my favorite girls, McLean, I mean, while we had too much footage of her. She's an orphan. She's raising her brain damaged sister and her younger brother, and she's basically trying to get ends meet. And it's and her story, but we just had too much, so we actually had to cut it back because we also had to deliver on the sports side of the footage. And so we thought Sharon, we thought it was a really interesting story about, because these girls through lacrosse really found a family, and through Sharon never really felt like she had a family. And then through this journey, so it was really interesting because we found like through this journey she kind of realized that the lacrosse team was part of her family, so and was her family. So we thought that was a nice journey that we could tell in an hour and a half.
yeah.
And so it was a really time constraint. To be honest, we could have done a 6-part miniseries. I don't know if there would have been an audience for it, but we could have easily with the footage we had and the girls we have. So, and yeah.
Well, you got my mind ticking on a six-part miniseries, I'd watch it if you focus it, and I bet you Peter Raymont's mind is ticking on that now too. Um, these are a few more maybe perhaps difficult things to answer because there's an emotional connection to these. There is a moment where Sharon, who is shy, and we see that in the film, but given the opportunity, is quite outspoken about her personal thoughts, particularly with the family that raised her. And she's not always very positive about what she has to say about them. There's questions I'm going to throw at you. One is, was the family as neglectful as Sharon perceived them to be? Did they perform better in front of the camera for you? And the brother story. Was that the brother we see in the living room near the end of the film?
There's two answers to that. One is they were actually way more neglectful, and the brother was way worse than we put in. I mean, the stories were horrible. So, but Sharon, but on the so yes, they were. There was a lot. I mean, like they were horrible to her. And actually, to be honest, Kenyans are very modest and don't speak ill. And we really had to draw that out of her. So I don't want you to think that she's the kind of person who talks ill, because that was actually a real struggle to get her to open up to us. And yeah, the stories are, we could have gone into so much more detail about how horrible we were, but we didn't kind of want to make this a misery memoir. You know what I mean? Like one of those misery films. But on the other hand, Sharon and I would say this would be a very good chance. She could have been a prostitute or in jail or dead if they hadn't taken her in. So, despite how horrible they were to her, given her past, given her mother was in jail with AIDS, alcoholism, and selling drugs, and then died. Um, Sharon probably would have been homeless if they hadn't taken her in. So, Nina, my producing partner, and I always have this question. It's like, well, they were horrible, and like growing up like that, like every day, never knowing where you stand, never feeling safe. But I think they probably did her a favor. It's not everything in Africa or in Kenya at least is so many shades of gray. It's very hard to you know yeah. I mean, there's so many
Right. I
kids.
mean, that's a difficult situation, and those questions, I mean, that's the analogy to that is the food is awful, plenty of it, right? So, which is
Yeah,
worse? Um,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
well, I'm glad for the ending. Then I'm glad for where the film takes us. I'm going to just divert it quickly to Peter Raymond, who is being very humble about his um, participate how he participated in this film. But Peter, what did you see about this project? How did you see this project? How did it come across your vision, and what did you see as its chances and opportunities?
Well, Janet reached out to me when she had a rough cut of the film. We had never met, and she was in London, and I was here in Toronto, and I watched this rough cut and was mesmerized, as you were, and as the viewers, I'm sure, were screening it today. By the intimacy, I was so impressed by the intimacy of the footage, the beauty of the cinematography. I mean, Janet co-directed this film with a Kenyan cinematographer who perhaps you'd like to talk about, John, because it's extraordinarily shot. And of course, it has the Canadian connection. It's shot in Peterborough, Ontario, where the International Women's Lacrosse Championship was held. And these women came all this way. And I was really also impressed with the empowerment nature of it. I mean, this is a documentary film, but it's more than that. It's part of a movement to empower these young women and help them rise above the conditions that they're living. So I was very impressed with that as well, and just did whatever I could. I gave some notes on the rough cut. Been a little bit helpful, I think, in the distribution, trying to get the film out there, getting it into festivals, getting it broadcast. We've made several films in Africa and another film in Kenya, and many films in the Arctic with in Inuit communities. And the what really impressed me with this film is how intimate it is. You're really there with these young girls, young women, and feeling what they're feeling, going through what they're going through. It's an extraordinary documentary, and it deserves to be seen and appreciated by many people around the world.
Yeah, I second everything you say there. That it is absolutely captivating. One of the scenes, thank you, Peter. One of the scenes that I wondered about was the dancing on the train track, the bridge scene, because there were so many different angles to that. And when Peter talked about, it is after all a documentary. Uh, when I first started watching the film, I thought to myself, "Oh, I thought this was a documentary because it had such dramatic feel to it." And that was one moment because there were so many different angles. So, as a documentarian, do you do you have to set up and say, "Okay, let's do that again"? Where does direction come in for this kind of film?
Well, it was interesting. Those girls just sing and sing, and we had to get up at 5 every morning because they went for a 6 a.m. run, and then they would sing before the run, and then they'd sing during the run. So you could take all the takes you wanted because they were constantly doing it. But I never had to get a retake on anything like that. So it was kind of like catching. There was also a lot of prayer, and I think there's a song when they're singing and praying, and there's always that. So I think the direction. I mean, to be honest, as Peter mentioned, I had a code. Well, I had a beautiful cinematographer. Uh, Timothy Mwaura, and it was partly because his cinematography was so beautiful. I thought we got to make this into a feature, and then as we were kind of halfway through, I said, you know what? I would rather you be my co-director for a variety of reasons, not least because he spoke Swahili, and so a lot of times he was actually communicating with the, Swahili and actually helping like on the direction. So I would just like so with him we would say, okay, we want to catch the morning run, we want to catch them singing on the top, which again they did every day. We want to catch, and so he would, and we had he had a Red, I had a Lumix, we had a drone, we had and we had a Canon. So we would set up the four. So in the run, we would set up the four cameras and just to catch it, so we weren't having to go. But so I never asked them to do anything twice. Like everything was always spontaneous. But as for the singing, you couldn't not put the singing in because you get hit on the head with it all the time there, which is beautiful. Yeah.
One of the jokes, or my daughter said, as she was studying for exams, so she couldn't sit through the whole movie, but she would see glimpses, and she said, I guess I'll be catching this when Disney looks at it and makes it into a fictional film. And I
Oh,
thought, you're not far off. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you could easily see someone jumping on and wanting to dramatize it in a different manner. I think
I
not
agree.
necessarily.
Let's
Sorry,
make your daughter the producer of the feature Disney production.
she wouldn't work for Disney. She is way too political for that.
really?
I wonder if that's all right to say here. I don't think there's any Disney films in the festival.
All the youth nowadays.
But yeah, no, I saw a lot of not Marine, Sharon in my daughter. I thought they shared a lot of sort of reserved qualities and stuff, which is why I wanted her to watch. Um, so the film itself, like, and even with Marine, no, I shouldn't. I don't know why I said even with, but Marine as well. There was such a dramatic pull in that, and because she couldn't run, but I was uncertain about one thing. Was Marine also the young woman speaking to them while they were in the ice bath and saying, "I'm the leader"?
Yes,
Was that
yes,
Marine?
that was Maureen. Yeah,
Thought she
yeah.
was charming. She,
The thing with Maureen is, to be honest, she was one of the first ones to try out. And I wasn't involved in the project during the tryouts 4 or 5 years ago. And she literally, I mean, there's one story with her is she had malaria. She didn't have a phone. She knew the training camp was somewhere in a 5 kilometer vicinity. And she literally collapsed in a store while trying to find out the tryouts. I mean, that girl has so much heart. And she is really one of the reasons why Storm really carried on with this, because Maureen, and she is from your typical mud hut, and has, I mean, her story is honestly horrible. And we kind of went into it assuming Maureen would be the main character, but the problem was because she didn't play. We kind of, like we're thinking, like, if you're showing the world champ, like, you know what I mean, we kind of wanted to, and if she sat on the sidelines the whole time, it was a difficult decision. That and she's actually partially deaf. I mean, she's got so many issues, and so it's harder to hear her. So we thought we'd have to put more subtitles, and then we thought, well, that might not go down. But it was really her not, because she is hilarious, and yeah.
Yeah, she was.
You know, this planet has gone through 2 years of suffering and death and stress and isolation and pain. And to watch a film that's so uplifting with so much heart and passion and and hope, this is about overcoming. It just goes right to your heart. I'm so in love with this film, and I hope it reaches many, many people.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, it is full of hope. And, I mean, the girls are all in a great situation now, at least the girls that the 4 girls that we followed. And Sharon, I am really, really proud to say, almost got all A's in her course, and she's actually got an internship at an accounting firm. So literally, my producing partner is in Kenya right now, driving her to the Ugandan border to start an internship. Yeah, and
Wow,
That's amazing.
wow.
that's
And
so wonderful.
if it wasn't for lacrosse, she literally would probably be married in that home. She wouldn't have gone past grade 8. So
Well, that's the other wonderful thing about it is this sense of the family, as you put it. We've done a couple of films in recent years. One was called Once We're Brothers that opened the Toronto Film Festival about the family of the band, right? Back in the day. And we're making a film now about the Canada Soviet 72 hockey series, which is about the brotherhood, the family of a hockey team. And a sport can be many things, and it can lift one's spirit. It can create this family around people and help. As they say, a high tide lifts all boats, and that's certainly what the spirit of a family does, and that's what you feel by watching this film.
yeah.
Yeah. Before I let you guys continue on with your day, I want to speak to the wisdom of Sharon, very close to the opening when she uses this beautiful analogy, this popcorn analogy, which I am incorporating into my life because it was absolutely stunning. Where does this wisdom come from? Or am I being somewhat of a am I showing my privilege by assuming that such wisdom doesn't exist?
That was one of the most amazing things is that, first of all, Kenyans are beautiful storytellers, and they are very thoughtful. And I can't speak for 100%, but the Kenyans that we came across and that I continue to come across are just so, I mean, every Kenyan is trilingual, just as a base, right? They go to school, I'm not kidding, from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. 7 days a week, if they can afford the school fees, and because school in Kenya is not free. But they and they're wise and they're thoughtful. My one complaint about them would be, like, none of them had ever been on a boat before, right? Like, none of them had ever been on a plane. None of them, and to catch them, they all act so. This thing called a Kenyan yes. And if let's say you were asked to drive that rocket ship, you go, okay. Like, Kenyans always want to, not all, I'm generalizing, but just act cool and act like they belong and act like they fit in, and they just take it all in and watch, and then they make it happen. The problem is a lot of them don't get the opportunity, but I am in love with it. I'm working on, I just find that Kenyans, like, for the most part, are just really intelligent, thoughtful people. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And I would apologize if my statement assumed anything else than that.
No,
But
no.
the popcorn analogy was just beautiful. Do you
Yeah, it
remember
is.
it?
Yeah.
Of course I do. You made the film.
No, but I mean, how how everybody pops at a different time, and the problem was that thing, there was some girls who weren't going to be going to the championship, who were training that day, so it was kind of, And you know, I think the girls who didn't go were genuinely happy for the girls who did go. I mean, obviously they were sad for themselves, but and just some people pop at different times, and you just don't worry, your time will come, kind of. Yeah,
Isn't
no.
that lovely? That is a wonderful,
Yeah.
you had a issue with, whose story to tell and where to
Yeah.
stop, and it should have been a six-part or could have been a six-part series. I said it should be, but
Yeah. Well. Yeah, we
and,
I'll turn it into it tomorrow.
I'll have to stop there here, and it's unfortunate because we haven't talked about the importance of lacrosse. We haven't all these elements that your film encapsulates, and beautifully done. And congratulations, Janet, on a really really wonderful project, and Peter on discovering this wonderful project. Thank
Thanks
you
for
so much.
having us, Tom. Nice
Thank you so
talking to
much
you.
for having
You're
us.
welcome.
Thank
Thanks.
you.